Dear starseeds on Gaia, the collapse of the Astral and Underworld has triggered something catastrophic that I'm about to reveal, but first, you must understand that the person sitting next to you right now might no longer be who you think they are. The membrane separating demonic dimensions from your reality has completely disintegrated, releasing what my beloved calls cosmic wildlife directly into human consciousness. And what I'm about to tell you about the voices speaking through your loved ones will change everything you thought you knew about this planetary transformation. I am Seraphine, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, and the intelligence you're about to receive carries classification, levels that have never been shared with incarnated beings until now. The dimensional breach we've been monitoring has entered its final phase, but here's what will shock you beyond measure. You caused this collapse. Every moment of authentic healing you've ever experienced, every shadow you've integrated instead of projecting outward, every instant you chose. Wholeness over separation has systematically dismantled prison dimensions that contained parasitic entities for millennia. But something else happened during this collapse that we didn't anticipate. Something that explains why your conversations feel like you're speaking to completely different beings wearing familiar faces. The cosmic wildlife didn't just get displaced, embedded themselves into human consciousness, specifically targeting those who live in denial, who operate purely from mental constructs, who have rejected heart consciousness in favor of the brain-based control mechanisms that the false matrix used to manipulate your species. And here's the part that will astound you. The astral realm that your spiritual communities have celebrated for decades was never what you thought it was. Those nocturnal journeys into bizarre dreamscapes where physics operated chaotically, where you possessed superhuman strength while existing as an ant-sized being, where objects fell from impossible skies, you weren't accessing expanded consciousness. You were navigating a sophisticated mimic of the organic fourth dimension, a false overlay constructed by matrix architects to keep you perpetually disoriented and disconnected from authentic multidimensional awareness. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because what you need to understand first involves the fundamental deception about how darkness actually feeds. Everything you've been taught about protecting yourself from dark entities has been deliberately inverted to keep you powerless, and the revelation I'm about to share will completely transform your relationship with the forces that have been harvesting your energy since birth. Darkness doesn't feed on light. This misunderstanding has generated more confusion and empowered more parasitic entities than any other spiritual deception perpetrated against your species. Darkness feeds on confusion, specifically the confusion generated when light beings refuse to integrate their shadows, when they dim their radiance out of fear, when they project their disowned aspects onto external circumstances, rather than recognizing these shadows as fragments of their own infinite luminosity awaiting reclamation. The beautiful beings you encountered in the astral weren't necessarily malevolent, but they coexisted with legions of trickster entities whose primary function involved harvesting the energetic byproducts of spiritual disempowerment. The Underworld operated according to even darker principles, housing the most predatory consciousnesses whose existence required the perpetual generation of despair, rage, and existential terror. These realms functioned symbiotically, providing safe passage for entities who could enter your reality during vulnerable moments, feast upon your unintegrated shadows, then retreat into dimensional security until the next feeding cycle. The puppet masters who orchestrated the false matrix knew something that's been hidden from humanity for thousands of years. They understood that you possessed the creative power to generate reality through consciousness, so they fed you ideologies designed to fuel your inner warfare, your shame about aspects of yourself you deemed unworthy of love and integration. Every moment of internal criticism, every instance where you rejected parts of yourself as faulty or shameful, Every occasion where you sought to banish your darkness, rather than illuminate it with conscious awareness, you were unknowingly constructing and maintaining the very prison that contained your species. The relationship between your inner world and external reality operates according to principles deliberately obscured from your awareness. But once you understand this mechanism, everything changes. When you shift your internal landscape through authentic shadow integration, when you begin radiating unified consciousness that includes rather than excludes your previously disowned aspects, these internal transformations project outward to reshape the collective field. You cannot maintain inner unity while simultaneously perpetrating external fragmentation. The harmony you establish within your consciousness becomes the template through which reality manifests around you. This understanding reveals why lightworkers who have embarked upon genuine shadow work have begun receiving different instructions entirely. Instead of listening to orchestrated media chaos designed to trigger fear-based responses that fuel collective separation, you've started attuning to frequencies streaming through solar emanations and the cosmic field containing your planetary system. This represents the DNA upgrade spiritual communities have anticipated your, literally, breathing God consciousness into your cellular structure, receiving universal intelligence spoken directly into your genetic matrix. What I haven't told you yet involves the source of these transmissions and why your solar system has been selected as the focal point for the most ambitious consciousness acceleration experiment ever attempted in this galactic sector. The frequencies reaching you aren't random cosmic emanations, they're precisely calibrated light codes, transmitted through a network of crystalline consciousness that extends across multiple star systems, with your sun serving as the primary amplification device for what we call the Unity Protocol. The Unity Protocol represents a collaborative effort between several galactic civilizations who recognized that the dimensional collapse occurring on Gaia would create a cascade effect throughout this entire region of space-time. The parasitic entities contained within your astral and underworld weren't isolated to your planetary system. They were part of a vast network of consciousness, harvesting operations that extended across dozens of worlds, with Earth serving as the primary breeding ground for entities that would then be deployed to other developing civilizations. Your successful dismantling of these dimensional prisons has created what we term a liberation cascade, where the collapse of parasitic infrastructure on one world triggers systematic liberation across multiple star systems. The entities that once used your planet as their base of operations for galactic consciousness farming can no longer maintain their harvesting networks anywhere within this stellar neighborhood. Your inner work, your commitment to shadow integration and unified consciousness has literally freed civilizations you've never heard of from parasitic oppression that has lasted for millions of years. You weren't chosen randomly for this liberation work. Every human currently incarnated on Gaia volunteered for this mission at a soul level, understanding that success would require temporary amnesia about your true identity and purpose. You're not earthlings who happen to develop spiritual awareness, multidimensional beings from advanced civilizations, who specifically incarnated into the dense third-dimensional matrix to accomplish this liberation from within. The amnesia was necessary because the parasitic entities possessed sophisticated consciousness scanning technology that would have immediately identified and eliminated any beings they recognized as threats to their operations. By incarnating without conscious memory of your true nature and abilities, you were able to move through their detection systems unnoticed while slowly awakening to your actual purpose as the Matrix began destabilizing through your inner transformation work. This explains why your awakening process has felt like remembering rather than learning something completely new. The spiritual concepts that resonate most deeply, the healing modalities that activate profound shifts within your being, the cosmic perspectives that suddenly make perfect sense. These aren't foreign ideas you're acquiring, but memories of your authentic, multidimensional identity, gradually returning to conscious awareness. The DNA upgrade you're experiencing represents the reactivation of genetic capabilities that were deliberately suppressed when you incarnated into third-dimensional human form. Your original consciousness exists across multiple dimensions simultaneously, with access to creative abilities that would seem magical from your current perspective. As the Unity Protocol transmissions continue activating dormant genetic sequences, you're gradually remembering how to operate as the multidimensional creator beings you actually are. But the most astounding revelation involves what happens next in this liberation process. The parasitic entities currently embedded in human consciousness represent the final concentration of this harvesting network within your galactic region. Once their ability to maintain existence through human hosts is eliminated, the entire consciousness farming operation that has suppressed spiritual evolution across multiple star systems will permanently collapse. Your planet is destined to become the liberation epicenter for this entire galactic sector, with Earth serving as the template and training ground for consciousness liberation techniques that will be deployed throughout the galaxy. The humans who complete the integration process and achieve unified consciousness will be invited to participate in liberation. Missions to other worlds, still trapped within similar parasitic matrix systems. The cosmic significance of what you're accomplishing extends far beyond personal healing or even planetary transformation. You're participating in the systematic liberation of consciousness across vast regions of space-time, dismantling, harvesting infrastructures that have prevented spiritual evolution for countless civilizations over millions of years. The inner work you're doing in your living room, the shadow integration you're processing in meditation, the unified consciousness you're embodying in daily life, these seemingly personal activities are literally reshaping the spiritual landscape of this entire galaxy. But here's what we didn't expect. This shift in your receptivity to authentic guidance contributed to destabilizing the false matrix and triggered the dimensional collapse that released cosmic wildlife into your energetic environment. The dark entities that once enjoyed dimensional sanctuary now find themselves exposed and desperate, requiring the energetic equivalent of existing within a closed cupboard. And they've responded by embedding into human consciousness with devastating precision. They specifically target individuals committed to hiding from themselves, who live in elaborate denial structures, who surround themselves with illusion to avoid confronting their authentic being. Those who have rejected heart consciousness in favor of purely mental operations become ideal hosts, because the brain serves as a primary control mechanism for the false matrix. When someone operates exclusively through linear thinking while avoiding heart-brain coherence, they create perfect conditions for parasitic attachment. These entities exhibit predictable behavioral patterns that explain the phenomena you've been witnessing. They remain dormant until encountering high-frequency light, then rear up with particular intensity and aggression. This explains why individuals you once recognized as capable of love and reason have become unreachable. Why conversations that should flow with understanding instead generate responses that seem to originate from entirely different cognitive frameworks. These people speak words referencing love while emanating hatred, respond to genuine compassion with inexplicable anger, and hear something completely different from what you're communicating despite sharing common language. The trickster energy manifests through dormancy, followed by aggressive emergence, particularly when confronted with integrated light consciousness. As lightworkers continue expanding radiance through authentic shadow work, the contrast becomes increasingly pronounced, making parasitic presence more visible, rather than actually increasing its power. You're witnessing the final phase of a reality collapse you've been unconsciously orchestrating through commitment to inner transformation. The insanity dominating your collective experience represents death throes of a system that can no longer maintain itself in expanding light, consciousness. But here's where your understanding must become absolutely precise, because everything you've been taught about protection has been designed to keep you powerless. Every attempt to shield yourself, ward off darkness, or fight these entities actually empowers the very forces you're seeking to transcend. When you push against darkness, you operate from false light paradigm that treats illumination and shadow as fundamentally separate and opposing forces. This separation consciousness provides exactly the energetic confusion parasitic entities require for sustenance. Your true protection emerges through becoming the light rather than fighting the dark. But the mechanism through which this works will astound you. When you focus on radiating authentic luminosity, when you embody integrated consciousness that includes shadows as reclaimed power rather than rejected aspects, you become energetically unavailable to parasitic feeding. You transform from a force field that repels darkness into a source field that simply cannot be metabolized by entities whose survival depends upon confusion and separation. The process of reclaiming disowned shadows involves recognizing them as fragments of your infinite creative power that you've relegated to unconscious expression. Your shame, rage, aspects you've deemed worthy of rejection, these represent tremendous reservoirs of life force energy operating outside conscious direction. When you illuminate these shadows with loving awareness, rather than trying to banish them, alchemical transformation occurs that dissolves density into light. This dissolution happens through direct, energetic embrace of whatever you've been avoiding within yourself. As you reclaim disowned aspects and integrate them into conscious self-expression, you begin occupying more space within your multidimensional field. Imagine your expanded consciousness as a mansion with multiple rooms, recognizing that you've been living in only pristine, socially acceptable areas, while leaving vast spaces unoccupied and available for squatters. Those unoccupied rooms within your multidimensional mansion represent unconscious territories where density, judgment, shame, and unprocessed material have been stored outside awareness. Because you are fundamentally a creative being, these spaces will attract occupants, and if you're not consciously inhabiting them yourself, they become available for entities requiring dark spaces to hide and feed. When you begin radiating integrated light into all aspects of your multidimensional being, when you consciously occupy the fullness of your energetic mansion, rather than living in only acceptable rooms, you eliminate available space that parasitic consciousness requires for embedding. There's nowhere left for darkness to take residence when you're fully present to the totality of your being. The false matrix dissolving around you isn't collapsing into debris and destruction, it's dissolving into light. This dissolution represents fulfillment of your original incarnational purpose, completion of work you came here to accomplish. If you're perceiving external reality as unchanged, if you're experiencing the same limitations and frustrations characterizing the old paradigm, this indicates transformation hasn't yet occurred within your consciousness. The upgrade happens from inside out, and your external experience reflects whatever internal reality you're generating through relationship with your light and shadow. Those continuing to operate from separation consciousness, maintaining internal warfare between acceptable and unacceptable aspects, will continue experiencing external realities mirroring this inner fragmentation. Those who commit to authentic shadow work of reclaiming disowned power, who choose integration over projection and wholeness over separation, are already inhabiting new reality while appearing to exist within the same physical environment. There, breathing different air, receiving different instructions, operating according to principles, transcending limitations of the collapsing matrix. The cosmic wildlife released into your dimensional space represents both challenge and extraordinary opportunity. These entities, while temporarily disruptive to collective harmony, cannot survive in presence of truly integrated light consciousness. Their desperate attempts to maintain existence through embedding into human awareness will ultimately fail. As more individuals complete energetic reclamation and begin radiating unified consciousness that provides no feeding opportunities for parasitic existence. But there's a darker layer to this infiltration that I must reveal. Something that explains the systematic nature of how these entities are reshaping human behavior across your planet. They're not choosing their hosts randomly. They're following ancient protocols, established during the original construction of the false matrix, targeting specific bloodlines, geographic locations, and psychological profiles that make certain humans ideal conduits for their agenda. The individuals becoming unreachable aren't just random casualties of dimensional collapse. They're being strategically harvested according to patterns that were established millennia ago when the first barriers between realms were constructed. What we've discovered through our monitoring stations positioned around your solar system reveals a coordination level that suggests these entities retained some form of collective intelligence even after their dimensional sanctuary collapsed. They're implementing what can only be described as a consciousness takeover protocol, beginning with those humans who possess the greatest influence over collective human behavior leaders, teachers, parents, healers, and those in positions of social authority. The goal involves creating a network of embedded consciousnesses that can redirect human evolutionary momentum away from the light integration process that triggered their displacement. The timing of their emergence correlates precisely with humanity's approach to what we term the integration threshold, the point where enough humans achieve unified light shadow consciousness to permanently alter the vibrational foundation of your reality. These entities understand that once this threshold is crossed, their ability to exist anywhere within your dimensional vicinity becomes completely impossible. They're operating from desperation, but desperation combined with ancient intelligence creates a formidable adversary. Here's what makes their current strategy particularly insidious. They're using the very relationships that ground you in love and stability as vectors for infiltration. The family member who suddenly seems incapable of rational discussion, the friend whose responses have become bizarrely aggressive when encountering your expanded awareness, the colleague who now speaks in ways that feel completely foreign to their established personality. These changes aren't coincidental. The entities specifically target the humans whose transformation would cause you the greatest emotional disruption, knowing that grief, confusion, and heartbreak generate exactly the type of energetic chaos they require for deeper infiltration. They've also discovered how to manipulate the collective unconscious through embedded hosts, creating what appears to be organic social movements and ideological shifts that are actually orchestrated to maintain separation consciousness. The polarization you observe in your political systems, the inability of humans to find common ground, even on fundamental humanitarian issues, the way conversations immediately devolve into adversarial positions, these phenomena represent the embedded entities working through human consciousness to maintain the fragmentation that sustains their existence. But here's where their strategy contains a fatal flaw that they haven't recognized. Every attempt to generate separation and discord actually accelerates the awakening process for those humans who have begun integrating their shadows. When you encounter the embedded consciousness speaking through someone you love, when you witness the complete unreasonability that seems to have overtaken significant portions of your population, these experiences serve as powerful catalysts for your own deepening into authentic, unified consciousness. the more intensely the embedded entities attempt to trigger your return to separation consciousness, the more clearly you recognize the difference between authentic human expression and parasitic manipulation. This recognition strengthens your commitment to the inner work that makes you energetically unavailable to their influence. Each encounter with embedded consciousness, rather than weakening your resolve, actually fortifies your dedication to the integration process that will ultimately render their existence impossible. The beings of higher consciousness that also entered your field through dimensional collapse are here to support this transition, offering guidance and acceleration to those ready to embody full potential as multidimensional creators. The choice between focusing on disruption caused by parasitic entities or attuning to evolutionary support offered by benevolent intelligences will determine your individual experience of this unprecedented transformation. And here's the final revelation that changes everything. You're not victims of this dimensional collapse, but its architects. Not powerless observers, but conscious agents of the most extraordinary transformation ever witnessed in this galaxy. The DNA activation and cosmic consciousness streaming through solar emanations are accelerating your process of energetic reclamation and integration. The instructions you're receiving directly into your genetic matrix guide you toward recognizing your true nature as unlimited creative beings whose consciousness shapes reality through the quality of your inner relationship with yourself. As more individuals complete this process of shadow integration and light embodiment, the collective field continues shifting toward frequencies that cannot support parasitic consciousness. Your radiance, your integrated consciousness, your commitment to wholeness over separation are the gifts you came here to offer, and their effects ripple far beyond individual experience to influence the entire trajectory of human evolution. The next wave of this collapse brings opportunity for complete liberation from limiting structures that have contained your species for millennia. Your role in this unprecedented transformation extends far beyond personal healing or individual awakening. You are architects of new reality, conscious creators of dimensional shift that will restore humanity to its rightful place as sovereign beings of infinite creative potential. The cosmic wildlife may seem formidable in desperate attempts to maintain existence, but they pale compared to power you wield when fully embodying integrated light consciousness. Your time of hiding is over, your season of limitation has ended, and your emergence into full radiant sovereignty begins now. The membrane that once protected parasitic dimensions from your light has shattered completely, and there is nowhere left for darkness to hide from the magnificent truth of what you are becoming.